Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here with us today. Over my 15 plus years working in early childhood education, play therapy, and learning experience design, I've seen firsthand how a single, well-designed environment can just completely transform a child's development, literally overnight. So whether you're a parent trying to set up a playroom at home, a teacher managing a buzzing classroom, or a designer sketching out the next great educational product, this explainer is definitely for you. Today, we're going to fundamentally reframe play. We're taking it from being just a fun little break and turning it into a vital developmental engine. All right, let's dive right in. So first things first, we need to immediately dismantle a huge misconception. We've got to stop thinking of play as just a bonus activity or a break from the real learning. According to our source material, play actually is one of the main ways young children build the machinery of learning itself. It's not just mindless entertainment, folks. It is literally the primary way they practice being the kind of mind and body they're going to need later in life. To picture this, think of play kind of like Beijing's famous Hutong alleyways. From the outside, they just look like these simple, quiet, old lanes, right? But inside them, it's a whole different story. Children are constantly reading the space, negotiating tight turns, testing their physical limits, and improvising their movements. Well, play works the exact same way. It looks so small and simple on the surface, but underneath, it is actively training their attention, self-control, language skills, social judgment, and problem solving, all at the exact same time. Okay, here is our game plan for today. We'll quickly break down the play loop, talk about how to balance the 3 core design pressures, identify some common failure modes, and then wrap up by testing your new expert judgment. All right, concept 1, inside the play loop. Let's pop the hood and open up the machinery of play. We really need to see exactly what kind of work children are doing when it looks like they're just having fun. The source suggests that play grows children when it creates just the right amount of challenge inside a safe, self-directed loop. And inside that loop, kids are basically compressing complex learning by doing 4 kinds of work at once. First, they're testing reality through low-stakes simulation. Think of a kid stacking blocks until they tumble over. They're learning about gravity without any real danger. Second, they test themselves. This is self-calibration. It's exactly like adjusting a bicycle seat until it fits perfectly. Physical play helps them figure out their own strength and coordination. Third, they test other people. Play is a massive negotiation system. Just like roommates figuring out how to share a tiny kitchen, kids are practicing how to share control and, crucially, how to recover from disagreements. And finally, they are constantly testing rules. Which brings us to this internal question that kids are basically always asking without using words. What happens if I do this? This mindset turns the child into a little prediction machine. I mean, when a toddler drops a spoon from a high chair for the 20th time, I promise you they aren't trying to drive you crazy. They are literally doing science. They're verifying a pattern. Repeating that action isn't about being bored. It's about consolidating those patterns deep in their brain. So if we step back for a second, underneath the surface of every play activity is this controlled space where the child is actively coordinating 3 core things: perception, action, and judgment. Perception is asking, okay, what is happening here? Action asks, what should I do next? And judgment jumps in with, wait, is this working? When play is designed well, these 3 things are just continuously talking to each other in a beautiful loop. Moving right along to concept 2. The 3 pressures. Now we are hitting the absolute core focus of our explainer today. If you want to design play that actually changes a child, rather than just looking like cute playtime, you have to balance 3 specific pressures: challenge, control, and meaning. Honestly, these 3 pressures are exactly what turn mere entertainment into true developmental growth. Let's break them down, starting with challenge. Challenge simply means introducing enough difficulty to require some sort of adaptation from the child. Remember, children do not grow by repeating stuff that's already completely effortless for them. They grow when a task slightly exceeds their current comfort zone and introduces a little bit of friction. A child reaching, missing, adjusting their grip, and trying again, that is challenge in action. But it's all about finding that sweet spot. If it's too easy, there's zero adaptation. If it's too hard, the child just completely shuts down. We are looking for that just right Goldilocks sound. For a parent at home stacking blocks, just right might mean handing your kid a slightly uneven block just to see how they balance it. For a teacher running a classroom, it might mean pairing a younger child with an older peer for a shared task. And for a designer creating an educational product, it means crafting a game where the feedback clearly signals to the kid, hey, I almost have this, which naturally encourages them to persist. The second pressure is control. Now, control means having enough ownership to stay engaged. To be super clear, this doesn't mean you just remove the adults entirely. It means the child's decisions actually influence the shape of the experience. They get to decide what object to use, what role they want to take on, or maybe what rule they want to gently bend. A child who feels no ownership in an activity isn't playing. They're just complying with an adult's demand. And the third pressure is meaning, which is having enough relevance to actually matter to them. Meaning is the superglue that holds all that repetition together. It transforms boring mechanical drills into purposeful practice, all because the child connects to a role, a story, or a visible end goal. Pretending to be a doctor, building a massive tower they can show off to you later, or participating in a story that's actually worth continuing. These elements give the play a real mission. So how on earth do we actually structure all this? Well, we need to use supportive structure to guide play, kind of like the banks of a river. The riverbanks give the water direction without killing its momentum, right? The child is still the one in charge of the learning loop. In stark contrast, controlling structure acts like a pipe. Sure, water still moves through a pipe, but it has zero freedom to explore its own path. As parents, teachers, and designers, our fundamental job is to build riverbanks, not pipes.
All right, section 3, common mistakes and play failure modes.
So, what happens when these three pressures get out of whack? Well, play stops changing children. It's that simple. There are 5 common mistakes that completely break the growth loop. Mistake 1 is over-scripting. If you explain every single move, you instantly remove all exploration. You want to give constraints, not a script. Mistake 2 is endless novelty. Constantly throwing new toys at a kid prevents them from ever consolidating a skill. Mistake 3 is false freedom. Giving them an environment that is way too vague just leaves a child feeling lost and unsupported. Mistake 4 is competitive distortion. Overemphasizing winning makes children terrified to experiment. And mistake 5 is a misfit to developmental level. A design might be absolutely brilliant for one child, but totally useless for another. Let's look at exactly what developmental opportunities vanish when an environment tips too far in one direction. When there is way too much adult control, the child completely loses their sense of ownership and their ability to self-correct. If there's too little structure, they lose coherence and that all-important meaningful challenge. Too much sameness absolutely kills their curiosity. And too much chaos? That completely destroys their ability to recognize any sort of pattern. Let me give you a fantastic real-world example of getting this right, straight from a kindergarten in Beijing. Imagine a teacher with a massive pile of loose parts. We're talking tubes, fabrics, random blocks. If that teacher just says, "Hey kids, build anything," some of them are just going to wander aimlessly. That's too much chaos. But by adding a very light, highly meaningful constraint, by asking, "Can you build a path that helps this little vehicle reach the bridge?" the teacher brilliantly organizes their attention. It turns open, chaotic wandering into targeted spatial problem solving, while still allowing the child total control over how they actually build the path. Let's hit section 4, lecture summary and key takeaways. The absolute most crucial point here is that design decides what kind of growth loop the child enters. Your ultimate takeaway from all this should be the massive difference between busy play and developmental play. Busy play just occupies a kid. It just stimulates them to keep them quiet. But developmental play, that actually makes the child more capable of handling future situations. Good play is never measured by how much stuff is happening or how loud the room is. It's measured by whether the child enters a growth loop that makes them more adaptive to the world.
Finally, section 5, let's do some practice questions to test your knowledge.
Let's put your new expert judgment to the test with an easy recall question based on those 3 pressures we discussed. What happens to a child's learning loop when the challenge becomes way too hard? Think back to our sweet spot. If the challenge is too hard, the child doesn't adapt, right? Instead, they experience shutdown, frustration, and avoidance. The loop just snaps.
Okay, let's try a medium-level scenario. Imagine you're a teacher and your classroom block area has just become incredibly chaotic and super noisy. What's your move? Well, based on our failure matrix, chaos means the child is losing their pattern recognition. So you'd fix this by applying a supportive structure. You need to build a riverbank. You'd introduce a specific, meaningful goal or constraint, kind of like that Beijing bridge example, to give their play some form without stealing their choice. And lastly, I'll leave you with this big conceptual question to carry forward into your own homes, classrooms, or design studios. When you're observing a child, stop asking, "What game should I use?" and start asking yourself, "What kind of loop does this child need next?" As an expert designer of play, your job isn't to force the answer or dictate the steps. Your job is to recognize when the conversation between the child and their environment is truly alive, and then just provide the absolute perfect loop for them to grow.
So take a look around your own home or classroom today. Where are you accidentally building pipes, and where can you start building rivers? Thanks so much for joining this explainer, and keep exploring the incredible science of play.